Hi, I'm Diane Danielson, the COO of SVN International Corp, and I wanted to welcome you to SVN OutReach. SVN is a commercial real estate brand with over 200 offices in 7 countries, and we are always excited to talk about real estate and about some exciting trends that are happening in real estate, and especially bringing you people and some of our people, some of other companies that are doing exciting things in the space. With each episode of SVN Outreach, we are going to spotlight people, projects, and companies who are helping to transform our cities and communities. As we all know, the commercial real estate industry is facing a lot of challenges: urbanization, climate change, sustainability, transportation, outdated infrastructure. But with challenges, we always like to view them as opportunities. Opportunities for all of us in commercial real estate to participate in a meaningful way that can help be win-wins for our clients and for our communities. Today, I'm thrilled to be talking to Jonathan Burke of Patronicity about their platform. Patronicity is, am I pronouncing that right, Jonathan?
It's Patronicity, but that's close.
Patronicity. Patronicity. Yeah. Okay. So Patronicity is it's about really bringing the community into community projects, and more importantly, how to get funding for it. So with a very exciting platform, I'm going to turn it over to have Jonathan tell us a little bit about it, and you can either email me in questions, or we will try to bring some of the questions that you have to the front. So Jonathan, please tell us about Patronicity.
Sure. Thanks, Diane. Appreciate you having me today. So Patronicity, really briefly, is a civic crowdfunding platform that started in Detroit, Michigan about 4 years ago, crowdfunding for really any kind of public space improvement projects. So Main Street revitalizations, park improvements, vacant lot conversions, alley conversions. Think about sort of the spaces that you utilize in your community that would really improve the quality of life in your city or town. So recently we actually expanded from Detroit after a few years there to Massachusetts and Indiana as well. And our programs operate in partnerships right now with state economic development corporations. So in Massachusetts, we're partnered with the Massachusetts Development Corporation. Michigan, it's the Michigan Economic Development Corporation. And Indiana is the Indiana Department of Housing and Community Development. These programs operate by offering communities, nonprofits, resident groups up to $50,000 in grant funding to, if they're able to raise up to $50,000 on their end through local crowdfunding campaigns for projects in their neighborhoods. So really quickly, I'll go through a bit of a slideshow. It's mostly just visuals of some of our projects we've worked on recently. This first slide here is one that we worked on recently in Lynn, Massachusetts, called Beyond Walls. And I will sort of briefly bring you through, again, another slide on sort of the types of projects that we have ongoing. Again, downtown pocket parks, underpass revitalizations, urban farmers markets, Main Street revitalizations, alley revitalizations, community spaces, public community spaces. I think, for example, in Boston, District Hall, which is a co-working space. The space that you're seeing in this image here is up in Salem, Massachusetts, called the Espacio. It's in a largely Latino neighborhood in Salem. You can see this photo here. It's actually one of my personal favorites, access to natural resources, where the bike path just ends. So we like to provide the missing funds to help extend that bike path and get folks between destinations, between points along natural resources. And also park improvements, activations. Here we have a band shell we improved. A lot of cities we've worked with have done movie theaters, that sort of thing, something to improve the livability of those spaces. So quickly, how do these placemaking projects come together? I'll run through this quickly. The projects apply through our website. We work closely with the project creators to help drive traffic to the project sites. We ensure fit within the parameters of our program sponsors, whether that be a private corporation or a state economic development corporation. A sponsor approves or rejects projects within a few days after. From there, we actually just get ahead and launch the campaign. We shoot a quick video and then launch our 60-day crowdfunding campaign. We really hope these things in these projects can come together quickly, can be approved quickly, and at the end of the day, can be implemented quickly after. So here's an example of what a project page looks like. Again, this is from our Beyond Walls in Lynn example in Massachusetts. And to get through a little bit on what the page offers here, again, you can see the video in the main section. You can see what level of donations we're at, how many donors. This one had 1,300 donors. And on the right side, you can see the donation levels and the rewards and recognition at each level. Some levels need a t-shirt.
Jonathan, this is very similar to Kickstarter. It's sort of like a Kickstarter for community projects.
Sure. Yeah, it is similar to Kickstarter. It's a crowdfunding platform. The way we sort of see the difference between a Kickstarter, Indiegogo, GoFundMe, CrowdRise, a number of crowdfunding sites that are out there, is that all of our campaigns are very hyper-local. So the Beyond Walls Lynn project, if you look at the donors, I'd say 90% of them came from within the city of Lynn itself. So these are very hyper-local campaigns. They rely heavily on social networks, local media, local press, and local fundraising events. And that's
So most of these folks who are donating, this is fascinating, are probably just your neighbors. They're not real estate people necessarily. They like the idea of the project. They might have proposed the project, and they're just pitching in.
Yeah, and the beauty of it is some of them are real estate owners. Some of them are property owners. Some of them are small individuals. It's sort of the idea of the crowd is that there's really no difference on who is involved in that crowd and who is in that crowd. I mean, we can have anybody from a small $5, $10 donation from a resident all the way up to, in this case, even in Beyond Walls, we had a local bank give $10,000. So it does really help leverage both the large corporate donations with those small $10 corporations and puts everybody into that crowd of donors supporting these projects.
Yeah, it's neighborhood funding, and it's people who use the neighborhood. And I find it interesting, the giveaways for just a small amount, even a digital photograph or a postcard, but people get to go visit the space, so that's reward, and that's probably incentive for a lot of these projects.
Exactly. Yep. And it's in their background, it's in their backyards essentially. And a lot of these spaces we see in a lot of these communities, it's really the types of spaces that residents have wanted to reclaim for a long time. And this is sort of the first opportunity they've had to really have an impact in revitalizing that space and reclaiming that space for their use and the public's use. So really quick here, here's a quick summary of Beyond Walls. This is the before picture of what this underpass right in the middle of downtown Lynn looks like. You can see there's a pretty decent population around the area. There's a number of buildings around the downtown area that are occupied by residents, offices, businesses. One of those cities that used to be the home to General Electric. It's like many Rust Belt cities in the Midwest. It's like many suburbs of Boston in the Northeast that have seen better days, seen more jobs, seen more stronger economy. But they're starting to come back, and you're starting to see folks move back into these cities. And I think with that sort of shift in population densities and centers, it's exciting and a great opportunity for residents to say, you know what, we can do whatever we want to our building that we own, or we can do whatever we want to the condo that we own. But when we step outside, it's really up to cash-strapped cities to improve all of these spaces. And frankly, there's not much funding available beyond paying teacher salaries and improving streets to fund underpass lighting that would look something like this. And this is actually another portion of the project. We recently completed a Mural Festival that happened this summer up in Lynn that drew a number of media outlets to come up to the area. The Boston Globe, NPR, Channel 5, local ABC affiliate did a story on this. But the story was really well covered and well received, and it sort of did a lot to change the perception of the city. And I think that's the big thing too when you look at from both the residents' perspective of maybe looking to move there, you have a business, maybe you're looking at finding a new location for your business, and the city all of a sudden has a fresh new face. But also from a property investment and development perspective, this changes that its surrounding area into something that's a much more of an attractive, sort of cool, edgy urban environment that I think investors and developers are always looking for today.
Yeah, and it sounds like some of these projects might have been on the books or in the plans, or people imagine them, but you're actually getting them done.
Yeah, these ideas had sort of been listed through a recent master planning process that the city had done. It probably been done 3 or 4 years before this, and we went through that study. We spoke to some residents, and those ideas came back out. And it took this opportunity to fundraise for 2 months, and then 3 months later implementing the lighting, the murals, excuse me, and now this fall implementing the light installations that will be coming up soon.
Wow, so this is under a year from conception to execution.
Wow. From our first conversation. A lot of the delay getting this approved was getting permission from the State Commuter Rail Transportation Authority, the MBCR, I believe it is. It took a few months to get approval to attach lights to their underpass. But from launching our crowdfunding campaign in the spring of 2017, the Mural Festival happened in the summer. And then lighting and sculptures and other artwork pieces are going in all around downtown this fall. So basically 6 months from fundraising, all the way
Wow.
through to implementation. So it's a pretty quick turnaround time.
That's a pretty quick turnaround. Now, does your company help with getting those approvals, or are you just the online platform that puts it all together, or how does that work?
Sure. So we do. We help with the approvals. We're also very lucky that a lot of these campaigns tend to come with the support, obviously, of our state partners in Massachusetts and Mass Development. And this campaign in particular had the support of a number of politicians in the area. The governor's office, the governor lives a few miles away from here, so he took interest in this. U.S. Congressman Seth Moulton's office was instrumental in getting a lot of the funding and the approvals in place for this project. So it really took a village, a large village to get this project done. And then a village to fund it as well, which is what we'd love to see. And hopefully now, as this is going up, folks who donated can sort of take pride in seeing their dollars go directly into a project like this.
That's great.
And then really quickly, I wanted to run through sort of to give you an idea of how our programs work and sort of how they work from a sponsor perspective. And our sponsors are those matching grant sponsors, folks that corporations and state agencies that kick in matching dollars to the project, to these hyperlocal campaigns. So at the start of the campaign program launch, we launched with a press conference. So in Massachusetts last summer, we launched with a large day-long event, a morning press conference, kickoff event, and a large social media push and traditional media push discussing the program, discussing the opportunity for Mass Development's matching grant. The projects then come in through our site, so we accept applications on a rolling basis for that, and we vet those projects. Then the crowdfunding campaign launches. So the campaign launched with a fundraiser. 300 people attended, business owners, property owners, officials, residents, and then the rest of the campaign launches. And that campaign has numerous events, social media pushes, traditional media pushes, friends and neighbors saying, hey, help support this project. I just donated $25 to, and this entity will help match. In our case, it was Mass Development in Massachusetts. We'll double your donations. Then this summer, which I was just mentioning, we had the Mural Festival, which included artists from around the world, actually, all representative of sort of the nationalities and cultures that existed in Lynn, receiving coverage, like I mentioned before, from the Boston Globe. The local media had numerous articles almost daily during the festival, showcasing what happened the day before, discussing the whole program, the donations, the initial crowdfunding campaign, and then how it got into actual implementation. And then the Underpass Lighting, which is coming up this fall, will most likely garner another wave of press and wave of coverage from local and hopefully regional and national media as well, showing how sort of this home of General Electric and where General Electric was born is sort of reviving itself and not really relying on folks to come in from outside of the city to help take that next step, take the city's next step.
That's great. Great for Lynn, and it's great. It's a great way for the commercial real estate industry to help improve districts that they've been waiting on improvements. I mean, think of how much more viable real estate around that underpass. It makes me want to go to Lynn. I haven't been there in years, so I'll have to come by.
That's what I want to hear. You have to get up.
Exactly.
And anecdotally, the property next door actually sold while we were running the crowdfunding campaign to an Australian investor. Who's proposing, I want to say 250 market rate units of housing, which would be, I believe, the largest project from all market rate housing in Lynn in probably decades.
Wow.
So I hope it was a direct result of this. I'm hoping this will help.
So we're looking at a project like this. What sort of, well, in Massachusetts and in Indiana and is it Michigan, you've got a state development organization that backs the project. So you're able to take on a bunch of projects. What are the size of the projects that you can or make sense to take on or that are able to succeed?
So dollar-wise, it's anywhere from a crowdfunding campaign of $5 all the way up to $50,000 per project. And that receives a $5,000 to $50,000 match per project.
So a project should probably cost $10,000 to make it.
At least.
At least,
yeah,
okay. And
that's
then
just the lowest
if you're
level.
in one of those states with an entity that backs it, then they will probably match. If they approve it, then they would match if you could just get the 5,000 or whatever.
If you could raise the 5,000, yep, and they would
Right.
match with their 5,000, yeah.
So like Kickstarter and these others, sometimes projects don't get funding and then nobody spends any money. It just didn't get funded.
Yeah, we do. There's two different avenues.
Out of topic. Yeah, you spend time working on it. You spend time working on it regardless.
We lose that on our time, which tends to be a lot. But No, there's two avenues. You can either accept an all or nothing campaign, meaning that if you don't hit your goal, you receive none of the funding that was essentially came in as pledges during the campaign,
Mhm.
or partial funding, which means that anything that's pledged is a donation, and that is capped. You just don't receive the match if you don't reach your goal.
Okay, so then you still have that money to work with, and you could get the project part of the way there.
Exactly, and maybe it's a portion of the project.
Okay, that's great. Okay, one of the things, so what about these states that don't have a entity to back this? Is there a way that they could get an entity in touch with you for this, or what sort of entities are these? I know Mass Development, but I'm from Massachusetts, so if you want to
Sure.
explain maybe a little bit about your partners in this.
Yeah, so I mean, to date, our partners have been large state agencies, economic development corporations. So these are multi-million-dollar agencies that are tasked with economic development statewide, from giving out loans and selling bonds all the way through to consulting and technical assistance work for communities across the state. They're all larger programs. They're year-long programs, typically right around $1 million in the matching grant pool of funding. But we're always looking at smaller programs and in discussions and conversations with folks who may have interest in exploring a smaller program citywide, or just focused on a smaller city or a smaller geographic area. So we're really open to anybody who has an interest in sort of supporting their communities and their neighborhoods. And we think, and I put the slide together too, we think it's a great way for folks interested in this type of community development and support work to really get more of a sort of name out there for their buck, I guess, is the push. It's not only do you get sort of the recognition at the ribbon cutting event, but throughout the entire crowdfunding campaign, we hope that folks do send out their tweets and Facebook posts saying, hey, support this campaign in our town, and X entity will be the one who's doubling your donation to the project. And it's a real good way for organizations and groups to.
So you could have private sponsors who are, or backers who will match the funds. It doesn't have to be economic development. So that's no tie to that. So if you have an entity like a local regional bank in your community, and they're interested in developing something that would benefit the community, usually it has to be a sort of economic development type need, that they can contact you and start a program locally anywhere in the U.S.
Yeah, exactly. It can be, like I said, small bank. It can be even a larger property owner. Big bank. Yeah, I mean these projects. I think the example I just gave in Lynn, I mean, you're benefiting so many of the property owners in the area in the long term just by sort of the quick change of perception of their city, especially as they're looking to rent office space and looking to rent market rate housing in the area. So we're always in discussions and looking into how can we set up a program that benefits a couple of developers or a pool of developers or property owners in an area to help them leverage their dollars to help further their work in community development in their neighborhoods, and also help ingrain themselves in the community.
Well, that is great, and exactly why I asked you to be our debut guest on the show, because one of the things SVN likes is to be involved with our communities. We are located in our communities, we have to live in the communities we work in, and we want to make it all better places. And there's all these new ways of doing things. Like, here's one way to get all your neighbors involved in something that's important that could help redevelop a town. Our demographics are shifting. So I want to say, Jonathan, how do we get in touch with you or your company? I know you probably have a Twitter. Do you contact information? What's the best way?
Skip over the last slide here, but here's my information. Again, it's just Jonathan at patronicity.com. I do have a Twitter. It's at Berkie, BERKIE1. I've had that since the earliest days of Twitter back in 2011, 12. Is that
so you're on Twitter, early. You're one of those early adopters. Yeah, I was too, but I changed my handle, so I lost a lot of followers.
Yeah, I should have done that earlier.
But yeah, no, this is exciting. Patronicity? Did I say it right? Yep. Patronicity. Okay, I can get it now.
Patron of the city.
I can do it. We've got it. All right. Well, this has been really great, and I'm really excited about this. I know SVN is talking about how we can work with you a little bit more and do something like this in some of our communities where we have been involved in the local neighborhoods, because we know how much of commercial real estate, when done well, when mixed with arts and culture, can really create a community, and that's what we're about. So
absolutely.
I want to thank you so much for joining us today. I want to thank our viewers, and I hope you'll all come back. We'll be back soon with more exciting projects and spotlighting companies that are doing things in and around commercial real estate that's interesting. And the reason we're doing this is because at SVN, we like creating amazing value with our clients, our colleagues, and our communities. And so we're looking for more companies to spotlight. So if you are one of those companies, please feel free to contact me. My Twitter handle is @Diane Danielson. And you can also find me at diane.danielson@svn.com. All right. Thanks again, Jonathan. We'll see you soon.
Thank you, Dan. Thanks, folks. Take care.